Good afternoon. I'm Wendy Brooks. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of the Jewish Federation here of the Desert and a friend of Alan Potash. Ron Langus, the acting president of the Jewish Board of the Federation, and the staff, welcome and thank all of you for coming today to honor the memory of Alan, including those who are joining us from Omaha and other places around the world. Many of you have known Alan for much longer than me, and I feel honored to be speaking today in his memory. Alan was one of the most outstanding people I have ever met. There were many layers to him, each one better than the next. He believed in community, and he encouraged me to join the Board of Trustees. Even though his time leading the Federation here in the desert was short, he had an enormous impact on this community, as evidenced by all of you here. He had the exceptional ability to form meaningful relationships and bring out the very best in other people. One thing I really appreciated about Alan and witnessed in the last year was his ability to express deep emotions publicly and harness them for good. I was thinking of him this morning as I watched videos of the 3 released hostages returning to Israel. It especially seems appropriate that we are remembering Alan today. Over this past summer, my husband and I traveled to Israel and spent time with Alan and Amy there. I'm very grateful that we had that time to get to know him more on a personal level. My husband and I had looked forward to many years of friendship. We are all deeply saddened by this loss. His absence has left a huge hole in this community and in anyone who had the opportunity to be in his world. May we find some comfort today as we remember Alan and listen to people who have known Alan share their memories of him. We're going to start with Arnie Gilman, who will share with us thoughts about Alan. Arnie was the president of the Board of the Trustees while Alan was our CEO. Since Alan's passing, Arnie has stepped up and has been tirelessly leading the Federation, and he's currently the acting CEO of the Jewish Federation of the Desert. Thank you, Arnie.
Thank you, Wendy. First, I'd like to thank Wendy, the staff, and everybody that made this day happen. Thank you so much. So, knowing Alan, he's probably has a big smile on his face today because of all the people here. More important than that, the smile is that there are people who were released from hostages. The hostages were released. That's the biggest smile he has, and it's appropriate on this special day for Alan that this is happening. Alan loved the country of Israel, and he was very fortunate the last 30 days of his life he spent in the country that he loved. I mean, it was unbelievable that happened the way it happened. When I would go visit Alan in his office, the first thing he'd say, put on channel 12 and then you know what really is happening in the war. I says, Alan, you got to be kidding me. You think I understand Hebrew? And he would we would laugh because I have no idea what they were saying. Then we would have small talk. And he would ask me about my family and what's happening, and I'd ask him about his family, and he really knew that I cared about his family. When I asked the question, I really meant it. So he would say to me, well, let's see, Amy's in China or Japan or something like that. And then I'd ask him about his kids, and he really didn't open up to many people about his children, but he opened up to me, and he was so proud of you guys. It was unbelievable. And I said, tell me what they're doing. And he'd say, let's see, today they're in Monaco with the Prince of Monaco. I mean, it was unbelievable. And next week they're going to the Indy 500 and they're going to be in an owner's box. I mean, he was so proud, but he didn't like to brag about it. And he should brag about it because you guys are well accomplished and your family should be very proud. I know he was very proud of you guys. So then we'd sit down and we would talk, and we would talk about what's going on in the Federation. And he would say to me, listen, I was from the old school, like I was on the campaign for many years in LA, and he would say, and I would think, you ask people for money, and that's what the deal is. And he'd say, doesn't work like that. You build relationships. You listen to people. Make sure you listen to what they have to say. So when you explain what the Federation is, they understand it. It's very important they understand what we do. We bring money in and we give money out. And we help those that are in need. And that's what we do. And if we could bring that out to the people that give donations, we'll get more money and they're going to want to give it to us because that's how important it is to help the Jewish community locally and overseas. So he was an amazing man and he taught me so much about life. He told me what the Federation means. And I would love to have conversations with him. And then he would tell me about the times, on Mondays, we have a bunch of people that do studies with Rabbi Crime and Torah study. And then he told me, I do Torah study with Rabbi Crime and one-on-one. And he absolutely loved it. And then he would tell me that wherever the boys were, he'd make sure if he could reach them, no matter where they were, he would talk about the Torah portion of the week. I mean, he was an amazing man and he loved his family and he loved being here and he loved his friends. And we had many deep conversations. And then we talk about different things and he would say something like, what'd you do this weekend? And I say, well, I was watching football or whatever. And he would say, I don't think you knew the difference between football and a baseball. And then he would tell me about reading a book and his books were so deep. I said, Alan, after the first paragraph, I'd be sleeping. I mean, it was really funny because like I always say to everybody, we're complete opposites. He was from Nebraska, I was from Brooklyn. But what we had is we believed in federation. We believed the importance of federation and what it meant to be part of this community, to be able to help those in need. I absolutely loved him. He was like my big brother, even though he was younger than me. And I say this, and I really mean this, that if and when I go to heaven, the first person I'm going to look for is Alan Potash, so we can talk about how to make the world better for the Jewish people and the Federation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Arnie. That was very moving. Alberto Tejero, the Chief Financial Officer of the Jewish Federation of the Desert, will now say a few words.
Alan was different. The first week of work at the Federation, he didn't care about what we were supposed to do. He cared about our personalities, what made us happy, our hobbies, and our interests. I don't know if you know that Alan was a bohemian at heart. He traveled the world with a harmonica and a deck of tarot cards. And he said that he was never alone. He at the Federation, he taught us how to juggle while he tried. He taught us how to blow the shofar. And the most important thing, he will have meeting with us every morning, really early in the morning, one-on-one. And he wanted to know about our families, friends, and again, families, because family was what Alan treasured the most. So, Alan, we're going to miss you. You were great. We love you.
Now we're going to watch a video compiled by Alan Gitlin, who is a board member of the Federation, and it includes highlights of a trip he took with Alan to Israel, as well as events here in the desert.
Alberto, does this go off? Yes. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Yeah. All right. You just, yeah. Okay. Good afternoon. This is quite an honor for me. Alan and I became very close throughout the years that he was here. I remember the first day he went to an event. I'm also the director of a Jewish men's group, and he came to the Valentine's brunch. Remember that? And I said, "Who's this guy walking around?" And it was Alan. He introduced himself to 200 of our closest friends. He met everybody. He wanted to know who they were, what they did, their involvement. And then this is actually an organization that Arnie started. Then I eventually took over, and Alan and I would have these philosophical discussions of why this group was such a success. Not only a success in the sense of being social and the camaraderie, but I think last year we gave close to $75,000. And Alan said, I've never seen a club this successful with this much passion and empathy for the Jewish community. So it was really great. He was a confidant. I remember when I had an issue of whether I wanted to teach at College of the Desert, and I said, "What do you think?" He says, "Teach. You have to teach. You have to give back. You have to teach the young people coming up." So therefore, I got a job at COD. So now I'm busier than I ever was. So anyway, I didn't get to put together the reel that I really wanted to do that Alan deserves, but this is kind of a compilation of different things and events and locations that we shot at in Israel as well as here in the community. And, it was interesting to collaborate with him, his writing and how his thought processes work. He was so enmeshed in people and interested, and he wanted to make sure people were well taken care of. So anyway, this is a little something that I put together. Like I said, it's a compilation of different places and locations that we went through his time being here in the desert. So anyway, it was very emotional for me to put this together because he meant so much to me and my family. So I hope it reaches out to you as well.
I'm Alan Potash, CEO for the Jewish Federation of the Desert. I'm here today in the desert as a comparison of the work that our visionary leaders from the Jewish Federation of the Desert established over 60 years ago to build a strong relationship with Israel. I'm going to say this. I'm honored to be able to be in Rabbi's presence. This guy's a mensch. He's a short sighted, and it's allowing me to be here today to be with you. He fills me in on all of the things that doesn't have friends. And I've been wanting to come and join them for one of the holiday celebrations.
You know how many nights there are of Hanukkah? You just look up there, it'll tell you what 8 nights. We're the 5th night, not quite over. Alan, thank you for including me tonight. And Michael Saber, your humor really knows how to light up a room, and I enjoy being in your presence. So thank you very much. Now I get to be serious. First of all, for those of you who have supported the Jewish Federation, I greatly thank you, and the community thanks you. The mission of the Federation is very simple. It's to care for the vulnerable, strengthen our community, and to support Jews in Israel and around the world. As I look out over the room, you guys really know how to support the community because you come together and you make a difference. You make a difference with everything that you do, building our community and making it a better place. Standing up to anti-Semitism is not easy, but we have to do it now more than ever. There are so many challenges that we have in front of us, but for us as Jews, this is one we have to step up and be accounted for. No, I bumped you up completely. I will just to close with a few comments. Joy is something that comes with Hanukkah. And we also know that the miracle of lights is a story that we all learned as kids. We hopefully teach varieties of it to our children, to our grandchildren. But that's really what this is about. Hanukkah is more about education and rededication. And so I pledge to you, and I ask all of you, to use the concept of Hanukkah as education to work with your friends, to help them understand why standing up for the Jewish community is important.
I'm Alan Potash, CEO for the Jewish Federation of the Desert. Over the past 60 years, this community has contributed billions of dollars for building and sustaining life in Israel. Most recently, we partnered with Mirage in southern Israel to establish and support early childhood education. Our organization focuses on several fundamentals of caring for the vulnerable, strengthening community, and supporting Jews and helping Jews in Israel and around the world. This is a story of how we, the Jewish Federation of the Desert, have been able to make significant inroads and impacts in communities throughout Israel. I want to thank the founding leaders of the Jewish Federation of the Desert, who had the foresight of helping the vulnerable here in this community, as well as with Jews in Israel and around the world. In partnership with today's leaders, we want to build upon their vision and lead this community to have more of a substantial and significant impact on meeting the needs here and in Israel and around the world. As the Jewish Federation of the Desert, one of our primary goals is to make a difference in people's lives from as early an age as possible. One avenue of the resources went to preschools, elementary schools, and high schools. What we observed were programs that provided the basic support to improve their lives, as well as their families and their futures. Our funds were utilized to improve the curricula and programs empowering the staff to teach relevant basic life skills to the students. Here is one example of a school and program which the Federation supports in Ramat HaNegev. It is the Zin School in Mirage Ben Gurion. I was introduced to the staff by Mayor Rancho. He was the inspiration to this partnership, who recognized the need and our willingness to support this type of program, which reinforces life skills for students who are experiencing emotional and behavioral issues. Moving south to the border with Egypt, I visited Netzana, another inclusive program we support, teaching pre-Army cadets who need additional instruction and social interaction. I happened to come when 40 high school alumni recently arrived from war-torn Ukraine. They were warmly greeted by Israelis who provided safety and security while helping them to finish their studies. In Jerusalem, I went to Hoshen, a vocational high school we support from the Jewish Joint Distribution Committee. This high school is designed for students who don't fit into normal academics, but have the passion for learning. They can select from various creative vocations to develop and prepare for future careers. Our support of Jewish Family Service of the Desert gives us the ability to meet the needs of the less fortunate in our community. One of the most significant programs we direct resources through JFS is Cafe Europa. Cafe Europa is a social opportunity for all survivors to come together to share stories and discuss ways to educate the public on the atrocities of the past and current genocides. Another organization we provide considerable support to is Bikor Olim. This organization was founded by Rabbi Kraiman, who provides education, missions, and significant programs throughout the Coachella Valley. Another essential allocation the Federation makes is our support of Hillel at UC Riverside and Redlands, as they provide religious and cultural opportunities for students and in recent years, combating the fight and challenges of anti-Semitism. Another critical example of our work is providing funding for local Meals on Wheels programs, also supporting Jewish educational efforts. We want to broaden our scope and enhance the support of these essential programs. We can only succeed in doing this through fundraising more dollars and expand our work and support for the less fortunate here and around the world. All of these efforts have been made possible by your support over the years. In order to meet the growing demands, the Jewish Federation of the Desert needs your help.
Thank you, Alan, for putting that together. Alberto just asked me to remind everyone that if you'd like, we have a book on your way out. We're not done, but on your way out to sign to share a memory of Alan. So that's out in the lobby. Now we're going to hear from Dr. Beth Dotan. From Dr. Beth Dotan. She's a family friend of Alan, Amy, and the boys. Dr. Dotan is a research assistant professor at Harris Center for Judaic Studies at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln. Beth.
I'm honored to be here with you today.
You have to talk really close because I cannot hear.
It's been more difficult to sit down and write a few words now than it was when we were all shocked by Alan's departure. As the time goes on, Alan, as your absence is felt in so many places, spaces, and crevices of our memories, it's much harder to come to terms with your loss. Some of my remarks today include those I shared in Omaha a few months ago. In Judaism, as explained in our scholarship and commentary, the heart is considered the center of a person's life. The metaphor of the heart as a moral compass or a vessel associated with feelings, wisdom, and action can be found throughout the teachings of Torah. The heart is where the person's feelings and wisdom are contained, and from where a person makes choices motivated by their desires. For Alan, the issues of the heart were his source of action, as well as his moral guide. For Alan, our quiet, reserved, and contemplative friend, the heart is where generosity, bravery, and wisdom reside. He sincerely exemplified how the heart intertwines with study and engagement, particularly within the three pillars of social justice, community, and Israel that propelled his work and his life, and as he would say, in helping many people map out their Jewish journey. How ironic that the beginning of some relief for the families of the Israeli hostages coincides with this Memorial Day for you. As with the rest of us, your heart would feel joy and the continued throbbing for a peace we do not yet know. Having known Alan since our teenage years, in a sense, we grew up through our friendship and relationships while raising our families. It was clear that there would never be a better fit between the yin and yang of Amy and Alan. And Amnon and I always appreciated becoming part of the extended Potash Nachman families. This has been especially true with our children, Dianez and Yonatan, who was not a third wheel, but like a third son. Alan, having your talit sheltering us from the chuppah for Yonatan and Anna Rose's wedding a few weeks ago provided comfort and the profound loss of not having you share in that simcha. Our life experiences that include the tears and laughs in so many places are countless. We desperately miss your soft chortle and cue to break up the party because you were sleepy after waking up at 4:30 in the morning to walk the sweet dog Brucey. Our lives interacted beyond our long friendship to our complementary work at the Omaha ADL CRC office and the Institute for Holocaust Education. It was a powerful experience to share multiple mutual community work. Alan supported the possibilities that I conjured up with generosity and wisdom of the heart, and as I know he did with others in every position he held. Likewise, he had made sure to mark his life, his few short years in the desert, yet he had so much more to do. I know one of his goals when he moved to Palm Desert was to find a home where he and Amy could fit a dining room table to accommodate at least 20 for Shabbat, because Achnasat Ochim, including neighbors, was part of Alan's considered a criteria in building community. Excuse me. I know one of his goals when professionally with Alan, the goal was to seek avenues to repair our world, even at the cost and depth of great concern, silently carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. As you know, Alan was a quiet man, bearing the complexities of life deep within his souls. You wouldn't always know what he was thinking, but you always knew he was thinking and watching and seeing. He cared and he loved deeply. Alan and Amy, the twins, exemplify the meaning of family, took us in as extended family. So, as they have so many. Alan's heart was a vessel of feelings and wisdom. His loss is vast for all of us, far and near. We pray for the comfort of his memory to strengthen the shattered heart felt by all of those who knew him and loved Alan, his extended family, and especially our dear Amy, Adiv, and Ezra.
All right. We welcome Kathy Schechter to speak. She's a family friend of Alan, Amy, and the boys. Kathy is a teacher and was a study partner of Alan's for many years. She lives in Austin, Texas, where she has been a longtime active member of the Austin Jewish community. Kathy.
Thank you all for your words. I appreciate the sentiments that you've all expressed. To say that Alan was my friend is a little too generic. And so I have to default to Hebrew and say he was my chaver. From the moment that Alan, Amy, and the boys, I told myself I wasn't going to do this. Okay. From the moment they entered our house over, 23 years ago, the boys were maybe 7. We recognized each other. Shabbat dinner. And they entrusted us with their beloved twins when Alan passed a kidney stone. And then they gave us the boys to train for their B'nai Mitzvah, which we maybe came up a little short sometimes. And through the Bar Mitzvah, we met extended family of the Nachmans and the Potashes. And they've welcomed us so warmly as Chaverim, sharing a love of family, a love of Israel, and a generous spirit. Driving once through the Negev with Alan and my daughter Julia, we beheld a complete rainbow. And we stopped off by the side of the road, and we got out to just stand in awe together of this rainbow. And when I reflect on that memory with Alan, it was like a friendship bracelet from God, because he was my chaver. Alan and Amy returned to Omaha, and continuously after they left us, we continued our friendship. But then came an aspect of our friendship that deepened it, and that is being a chavruta. If you have never had a study partner in Torah, you're missing it. That's something that Alan would want you to know. It was early 2016, as I recall. I was in the process of writing a master's thesis on Talmud Yerushalmi. Yes, I got a master's at 61. What was I thinking? I had been a student of Rabbi Judith Abrams, and she died unexpectedly in 2014 after 14 years of study. It left an enormous void, and to fill that void, I invited Alan to study with me. Where would we begin? Well, wherever Alan was, because he was doing Daf Yomi, which is a page a day of Talmud. And frankly, he was a pretty grumpy study partner because he was studying Nida, which are the laws of menstruation. And he was really kind of disgusted with it. And the discussions of young girls and looking for them to sprout a hair, it just offended every sensibility that Alan had. And so I'm thinking he's a little too grumpy for. So I said to him what my teacher said to me. Daf Yomi is no way to study Talmud. You want to study Talmud? Let's study Talmud Yerushalmi. Talmud Yerushalmi is the Talmud of the land of Israel. It's the older Talmud, written in Hebrew and in Western Aramaic. It's easier for me, at least, to understand. The text deals with the agriculture of the land, from leaving the corners of the field for the poor to making the first fruits, the bikurim, the construction. This was really important to Alan, a proper sukkah, the rules of community, the crops, the celebrations, all of it totally erased that grumpiness. And like all things Israel, sparked his soul. And so we traveled the road less traveled through Talmud Yerushalmi to the distant past, where we bemoaned the loss of it in the present here in the diaspora and dreamed of a future that neither of us will live to see. Rabbi Abrams also taught me when my teachers always write in the margins of your book. So whenever somebody offers a fresh perspective or a good question or something that excites them, I write it in my book. So I spent the last week going through my books to see all of the things that I wrote down about Alan, things that excited him or made me laugh or things we learned together. Because when I consulted heaven to see how do I honor Alan's memory, I got a clear message to go teach them something. Mm-hmm. Number one, teaching of Rav Alan. Share. Anyone in whose hand a lulav comes, it's a gift. At the ancient temple, Sukkah was a pilgrimage festival, and so people came from far and wide. And when they got there, the attendants of the temple would throw lulavim at them, throw them at them. And so if you caught it, fine. If you didn't, you're tough. It's tough luck. But you're not supposed to share it. This according to the Gemara. Well, it turns out that fights broke out, and it got kind of ratty and a dangerous free-for-all. And so finally, they taught, if you catch the lulav, it's a gift, but don't share it. Treat it as a gift. Don't loan it out. It's yours. And then there was another argument that said, no, you can't treat it as a gift. It's ownerless. It's hefker. So it's like, what's left on the ground after a day of sowing. It doesn't belong to anybody. It should be available to anyone. And if it's ownerless, the people that take it can't be accused of stealing. The halakha, according to Rav Alan, it's a gift. Why would it matter whose lulav it was? Share it. Alan just could not imagine a world where people do not share. Number two, teaching of Rav Alan about boundaries. There was a squabble over the boundaries in the land of Israel, and it's a very ancient story. In this story, though, the Kohanim are wondering, should we receive first fruits from Transjordan? So this was Bikurim was another pilgrimage festival, Shavuot, we know it as. What if the people came and they had better fruit, prettier fruit, tasted better, nicer fruit? Can we take it? The short answer, no. Even if they were nicer? Why? The halakha, according to Rav Alan, those rabbis are being exclusionary. It's like, Alan, it's a boundary dispute. No, they're trying to exclude other people. Now, if you know Alan, excluding other Jews was just a big, huge no-no. So enough said. And that argument goes on and on and on. And at the bottom of the page, I wrote, Alan says, can you imagine Woody Allen reading this? This is the source of all Jewish neurosis. Speaking of boundaries, our personal space is defined as 4 amot. From here to here is 1 amot. From here to here, to the end of this finger, is 2. So that's 2, 4, and this is your personal space. And it applies to all kinds of things. Rob Allen, the modern, says, I have an important question for teens, and I have taught this to teens ever since Allen taught it to me. What is your 4 amot when it comes to social media? What are your personal boundaries there? Number 3, Rob Allen and the modernity. Now, for a couch potato like me, it's easy to fall into what I call Torah time. That is, you begin your study session and it's going to be an hour long, but then you go an hour and a half and, you just lose time. Most of my students go there with me, not Alan. Alan lived in this world, in this moment. And when that hour was up, and sometimes even before, he was out of there. He had work to do on Sundays. And in keeping with his insistence on being in the present, here are some of the ideas of ancient ideas that he encountered that sparked his imagination. Folk tales. He loved them. Many Talmudic folk tales are about the fruit of the land. For example, did you know in the land the grapes are so big, you could stick a spigot in and a whole bottle of wine will come out? A certain person had a row of fig trees. One day he came out and he was surrounded by a fence of honey. There was once a turnip so big that a fox made a den in it. A single stalk of mustard had 3 branches, and one of the branches broke off. And with that one branch, they put a roof on the potter's hut. The halakha, according to Rav Allen, that should be a cartoon. Let's animate it. You guys come by it honestly. Number 4, Rav Allen, the Federation director, puzzler, warrior. Allen often struggled with the deficits of our modern secular Jewish education. He would privately lament how the fundamentals of community responsibility and Jewish education had been lost to secular values, and that it was destructive to the maintenance of our communities. He was always looking to the ancients to offer a little bit of wisdom about how he could better do his job. And so he would take this ancient wisdom to his heart to encourage him in his endeavors. He likened Jewish learning to a puzzle that you can't put together until you understand each piece. That's why, with each person, it was very personal, because each person was a piece of the puzzle. And a line from the Song of the Sea, celebrating the death of horse and rider, led to a question of why did they say it in the singular? Shouldn't it be plural? There were 600 horses and 600 riders. To which Allen, the Federation director, answered, when you go to battle, you tackle one thing at a time. Allen saw his job as a warrior battling for the soul of the Jewish people. And in this way, he loved his work. He was loved by many across our country and in Israel for everything that he did. We learn that when 2 people exchange words of Torah, the Shekhinah, the feminine aspect of God, resides between them. The spark of God is not just in you, and it's not just in me, but it's in the relationship that we have. In this holy relationship of Chavruta, we straddle time together, making a journey of the soul that is timeless. My chaver, my friend Alan, saw me for who I was, and he was there for me. Everyone should be so blessed to have a chaver and a study partner that gives us courage. When we journey into the sea of ink, it takes us beyond the ocean into the rugged terrains of our lives. Alan's words are permanently written in the margins of my books, so he becomes now part of the eternal Jewish conversation. The loss of a chavruta is profoundly sad. In his empty chair across the table on the Zoom screen or his face-to-face book to book, it will never truly be empty. Even as my sadness remains, I'm left permanently with the powerful gratitude for the time we walked together on this earth, for the holiness, the laughter, the fun that characterized our studies. I remain deeply grateful to my Chaverim, Amy and Ezzy and Adib, and know that we will continue to share our sorrows and our joys and fun. Together, we will conjure the soul of our beloved Al.
Thank you, Kathy. Bob Goldberg, the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Omaha, will now say a few words. Where's he? Over there.
Amy and Adib, Ezra, friends, good afternoon. Life is often spoken about as a journey, and the path that each of us takes is our own. Sometimes that path seems lonely. Other times we're blessed to walk that path with another person. And it is in those times, walking together, that give us the blessings of friendship, learning, happiness, and love. The time that we share a path with another person can just be a brief moment. It can also be most of our lives. Walking along with another is most meaningful when we take something from those interactions and we put it in our pocket like a precious memory to anchor us, to give us guidance, to give us a smile when we need it. Life in many ways is about collecting memories and cherishing them. I am grateful to have been in the right place and at the right time to have had a part of my path meet up with Alan's. Alan represented the best of Omaha. He was kind and honest, dedicated to our cause, always learning, teaching, and connecting people. He was also an adventurer and searched for new experiences. Leadership roles come with plenty of responsibility. Alan embraced that responsibility with initiative, with integrity, with humility, and with compassion. He leaned into it because he understood the importance of strengthening the Jewish people. He knew our ability to make a better world, and he was keenly aware of the consequences of not pursuing the work with vigor. His work and his life did make for a better world. That I know. I know that from my own experiences and from the many calls, emails, texts from people far and wide who made memories with Alan, both from within and outside of the Jewish community. When I started at the Federation in Omaha in 2008, I had energy and excitement. I had a great sense of care and responsibility, but Alan had already built a long history of experiences that helped shape his sensibilities, and I admired him so very much. I would sometimes find myself hiding out in his office. He, at the time, was the ADL CRC director. It was the only office suite on our campus at the time that was behind a locked door, and you had to get buzzed in. I would sit in his office. We would discuss community issues. I would admire his library. He would tell me stories about hate groups that he had studied. He would share the latest book he read the previous Shabbat on his iPhone. He would tell me about his time in Austin and in Champaign, the next road trip he planned to take, the enormous number of miles he had put on his Honda. He would tell me about his paper making, Amy's work travels, and stories of how Ezra and Adiv have known how to work a room since they were in elementary school. During those times, I could talk with him in confidence. I would ask him questions and he would give me feedback that I trusted. In the years since, I would search him out at conferences. and at times pick up the phone and call him just to talk to someone who understood the nature of the work that I was experiencing, sometimes to find out what was happening in Omaha, sometimes just to hear his laugh or to hear about Amy and the guys. One memory that I have that is very special I want to share was in 2012, and I've shared this with some of you. We took a group from Omaha to Ukraine and then to Israel. There were maybe 10 of us. Gary was with us, so if I say anything wrong, correct me afterwards. After leaving Ukraine, we arrived in Israel and took a transfer to Jerusalem. We arrived at a hotel in the middle of the night. Everyone was tired and wanted to get to their rooms. Alan excitedly grabbed me and he said, "You're coming with me." So we dropped our bags and a couple of us walked into the old city in the middle of the night. Alan said it was one of his most favorite things to do. We walked to the old city and down the quiet, empty streets. We made our way to the hotel and approached the wall. There was one gentleman leaning on the wall like this. There was another man sitting back about 20 feet in a chair with a prayer book, and otherwise the space was empty. After spending a few minutes at the wall, we went into the tunnel where more men were praying. We took seats at old desks in the back, and we sat there, and I fingered through prayer books. We must have sat for a good 30 minutes just absorbing the sanctity of that holy space. That memory is very, very special to me. I remember it often, and every time I return to Jerusalem, I'm eager to find that spot and sit and think and pray. The memory is particularly poignant as I think it connects Alan's deep loves for Jerusalem, for adventure, and for quiet introspection. It was an experience on his terms, and I am grateful that he shared it with me. Over the last few months, there have been multiple times that I have instinctually wanted to call him, to ask him a question about a challenge I was having or a person I wanted to know something about. Briefly in those moments, I felt more alone as a professional without my friend to give me trusted advice. But that feeling quickly transitioned to an acknowledgement that my life has been made better because of the time I shared life's path with Alan. I have a pocket full of memories of Alan. I will pull them out when I need them. I will keep them safe. I will continue to try to be more like him, and I will continue to work in a way that I think would make him proud. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Janie Morrow, Alan's sister from Omaha.
I want to have to follow you. I'm the luckiest person in this room. I had Alan for all of his 64 years. Most of you knew Alan as a Jewish community professional with a strong passion for Judaism and the state of Israel. There was a lot more to this man, and I'm here to tell you where Alan came from and from whom he got his wonderful qualities. When Alan was the executive director of the ADL in Omaha, I was working for the Jewish Federation. Our offices were a hallway apart. You just heard this. It was a bonus to be able to stop into his office and have a little chat. And on more than one occasion, I'd walk into his office and he'd be taking a personality test. Myers-Briggs and Rorschach inkblot type assessments. Whenever he found a new test, he would take it and often push me to take one also. He was more intrigued by these things than I was. And I wasn't sure whether he was trying to figure me out or whether he used them as a way to understand others. While these tests may be helpful, I think I can put Alan's personality characteristics into two different categories: his creativity and his love of Judaism. We had two grandparents that we were fortunate to have well into our adult years and who had a tremendous influence on Alan. Grandma Ida Potash was a balabusta and was renowned for her strudel, poppy seed rolls, and a myriad of other delicacies. She was involved in many Jewish organizations in Omaha and always had money for the pushki. Our holidays were around her family-filled table until she passed the torch to our mother and our Aunt Phyllis. Family was central to her life. In her mid to late 60s, Grandma went to Israel. The impact that trip had on her life was significant, and she wanted her grandchildren to visit. She offered to pay for any one of us to go on a teen trip. Only 3 of her 10 grandchildren took her up on it. Alan was one, and we all know what a lasting effect that trip had on him and how that trip became the first of many to follow. I was not one of the 3, but I had the great fortune to go on a Federation trip to Israel with Amy and Alan. And while Alan was not leading that trip, he had personal stories to tell around every turn. Whether it was his favorite hummus spot in Jerusalem, talking about his life on the kibbutz, or just telling a funny story about his experiences living in Israel, he had so much to share, and it gave deep meaning to all of us. Our father, Merle, followed in his mother's footsteps, not in the baking category, but in his obligation and love for Judaism and Jewish community. Dad was the executive director of Bethel Synagogue, the conservative shul we all grew up in. I remember many times there would be a death in the Jewish community, and Dad would ask Alan to sit with the body or attend a funeral in order to make a minyan. Alan never said no. And this practice never stopped. I think he went to nearly every Jewish funeral in Omaha. Shabbat dinner was always important to Alan. As teenagers, we weren't allowed to make plans on Friday nights unless we first had a family Shabbat. It's a tradition that Alan embraced and is one that all of us looked forward to as our children were growing up together in Omaha. Our mother's father, Grandpa Saul Slavin, was very creative and had a wide variety of interests, from photography to golf to ice skating. He was in the catering business and created the most beautiful trays of food that are family legends to this day. Grandpa had daughters, and when Alan was born, he was thrilled to have a boy in the family. He shared his nature with Alan, as well as giving him his camera, which sent Alan into a creative realm that involved not only photography, but paper making as well. Our mother, Ruthie, took after her father, and she too was a huge influence on Alan's creativity. Mom never bought something if she could make it herself. Sewing, knitting, furniture building were all in her repertoire. Hire someone to paint the house or wallpaper a room? Never. She engaged Alan and cousins to help with the project. Alan bought an old mail truck and used that as his vehicle for a lot of years. Only someone with vision and not much money could see that as his car. I'm only hoping that he borrowed a car when he took Grandma Ida grocery shopping into the kosher butcher. He created a selfie stick before selfie sticks were a thing, and we only wish that he had patented it. He'd get into the frame with you, take a picture, then put the picture in a little plastic frame that he turned into a pin you could wear on your lapel. Our sister Julie lived with Amy and Alan for a time in Israel, and she remembers she and Alan would go dumpster diving looking for treasures, for wood, for frames, or materials that he could use to make his paper. I wasn't able to speak at Alan's funeral 4 months ago. The shock and pain were too raw. Time heals and allows you the opportunity to reflect on the person and who Alan was to you as a community and to us as family. My prayer is that he rests in peace and that Amy, Ezra, Adiv, you all move forward with all of your wonderful memories, knowing that Alan left us all a legacy that will always be with us.
Thanks, Janie. Gary Nachman, Amy's brother and a dear friend of Alan, will now speak. Gary lives in Omaha, Nebraska. He also introduced Alan and Amy to each other.
On behalf of our family and friends, we want to thank Wendy, Arnie, Alberto, and the staff of the Jewish Federation of the Desert for this honor of Alan, our brother, husband, father, son, relative, and friend. You trusted him, and he gave you the best of what he had. For those that do or do not believe in coincidences, I find it interesting, as others have said, that today, when we honor Alan's life, we also celebrate the release and newfound lives of hostages in Israel. It was Alan's wish and our wish that all the hostages be returned home soon and peace reign in the land. I stopped on my path today for a peaceful image was in front of me. It doesn't happen very often. We lost a soul who made a difference. I saw him in his peaceful shroud. He could have been one of the righteous that keeps the world from destruction. He was that nearly perfect soul whose life was bigger than a normal person. He made nearly everyone he met a planet in his orbit just by proximity. He gave me strength, charged my soul like the warmth of the sun on my face when the air is sweet, a gentle breeze blows, and the rays are shining on me alone. It is an honor to have walked the same path. Life is better knowing there may still exist another human of this earth without trying to bring attention to themselves, who provided unconditional love, guidance, and spiritual solace to those who knew him. He brought me to a complete stop. I'm grateful for the pause. It gave me warmth. It gave me strength. I look forward to getting up tomorrow and sharing with the world around me, as I am slightly better person today because he left a treasured gift of his memory. V'yit Gadal, you will be great. V'yit Kadash, and you will be holy. These words from the Mourner's Kaddish will forever remind me of Alan's life. While he was the sole and secular leader of the Jewish community, Alan suffered from being an empath. He took on and absorbed the pain and needs of those around him. Helping the community, the Jewish community in particular, was a motivating drive for Alan. He loved his family and close friends more than life itself. His partner, Amy, my sister, his boys, Ezra and Adiv, he adored. His sisters, Janie and Julie, his parents, cousins, aunts, uncles were so evidently part of who Alan was and who he truly loved. My history with Alan was mostly in Omaha. He was one of my first friends after I moved there. His mother and I were determined and schemed to make a shidduch between Alan and my sister. It took 2 years, but it worked. It was great knowing that he would always owe me. Alan was my confidant, my brother, my friend, and in many ways, my fraternal soul partner. When he became the CEO of the Jewish Federation in Omaha, I knew he would be the heart of the Jewish community. I worked with him professionally while I was the regional director for the ADL for the Plain States. When the opportunity for him to be in Palm Springs and near his beloved sons, to continue his life mission of helping the Jewish people and in a warm climate, I knew it would be ideal for Alan and Amy. He loved the permanent community that lived here in Palm Springs and enjoyed the many lifelong friends he had from Omaha that wintered here, especially Beth and Amnon, Yonatan and Liat Dotan. Their love, friendship, and generosity has been boundless. He feared for Israel, the Jewish people, particularly after October 7th, 2023. It was important for him to be in Israel, to give what he could. He truly felt alive there. The blood of those that lost their lives, those that were displaced, and those that were hurting weighed on his soul. He would have given nearly anything to prevent the pain of those affected. He felt their loss. Being in Israel gave Alan a sense of comfort and peace that he felt only there. The closest he came to that was here in Palm Springs, where he felt he could truly make a difference. I enjoyed traveling on numerous trips with Alan to Israel. We both spent a lot of time there, connecting to the people, the history, the earth. It restored our souls. Israel allowed Alan to become alive. Believe it or not, he had a sense of humor. While in Israel last year, traveling with Dee and Judy, both from Palm Springs, we were driving through the desert and passed a failed vineyard, withered from heat. Alan turned to us with a straight face and said, "They must have been making dry wine." While I feel in many ways Alan was larger than life, perhaps even among the 36 righteous that are known to hold up the tent of the Jewish people, he was a fair, loving, good soul who has inspired many of us to realize humility and altruism truly exist. Alan, I know that you're here, watching over and guiding your family, your friends and community. I feel your presence. I know others feel your presence. You left me with an earworm that I can't get rid of. WWAD, what would Alan do? And I don't mind that it's always there.
Thank you, Gary. Alan's beloved wife and sons, Amy Nachman and Ezra Nadiv. Or just Amy.
Or her sisters. My sisters, who will pick me up. Okay. Hi, everyone. After 4 months, what would I say differently than I did at the funeral? I would say that our family of 4 is still strong. The 3 of us are beginning to build new dynamics. Alan's presence is strong. Each day we try to move forward. Personally, I try to balance my loss through yoga, meditation, long walks with our dog Brucey, with taking small steps forward. I hear Alan's voice. Get out of bed, aim. Don't dwell on me. Live life to the fullest and keep moving, girl. I can begin to say that the boys and I are building new muscles. We are beginning to feel stronger. We are laughing a little bit more. And yet we still feel the hole in our hearts that is deep and wide. In the same breath, I'm incredibly grateful for the support of our family, our communities, our friends, our colleagues. We have been fed, nurtured, cared for, and watched over. We are lucky and grateful. To speak to you here in Palm Springs brings me joy, and that it was a beautiful capstone for Alan's career. He had all that he needed. Me, the boys, the beauty of Palm Springs, the desert that Gary talked about that reminded him of Israel. And of course, a community and staff that he could help shape and influence and grow. He adored the community, and we were here because of his optimism to bring all elements that were important to him together. The highlight for me personally was that Alan and I spent more quality time together than we had in 35 years of our marriage. We spent more quality time with our beautiful boys than ever before and got to know them a bit more as the beautiful adults they grew into. We were so very lucky, and I'm so very grateful for every minute we had together. We loved the mountains, the terrain. Alan loved his role in this community and saw so much opportunity. We were so excited for our next phase in our lives that included a rotation between Palm Springs, Omaha, and Israel. And I'm going to figure out how to replicate that. As you've heard, Alan was a bridge builder, a peacemaker, an educator, a creator, an artist, a thinker, a listener, a papa, and a lover. Alan can be described in one word: mensch. Alan came from a family of mensches. You just heard Janie. I joined a family that was non-judgmental and accepting of who I was. To me, Alan was the full package. He had a strong Jewish identity, was not a typical US Jewish male, nor was he a typical Israeli male. He was different and unique. He was artsy, sensitive, and handsome. He held a mirror up to me to help me grow. He loved with all his heart, and that's all he knew how to do. Those that know Alan also know he wasn't a pushover. Although non-judging, he was particular about many things, annoying so at times. But Alan would say it's just his sensitivity to the world that patched his heart when he was 6 years old, and this experience changed him. He would say he was living on borrowed time, and his sensitivities came with his temporary body. Alan was as strong-willed as me. We matched each other's fierceness for life. We were equals in our spiritual and emotional journeys, allowing and encouraging each other to grow, hopefully in parallel throughout life. Alan was also fiercely independent. He was a creative and innovative thinker. He invented many new ideas in addition to the selfie stick, like his 3D resume when he was 20 that you could only read with special glasses. Probably why he didn't have a job most of the time. Alan's karma was to make the world a better place. He was an unwavering role for S&D, who often thought Papa's commitment to the world was so contrary to their fierce passion to capture the world with their twin superpower. They saw Alan doing it every day, and I know that they will carry on this torch. They so respected their Papa for this. Alan was an introvert and thinker, but oddly, he was an introvert in extroverted roles that forced him to interact with others to accomplish his vision and commitment. He recuperated through quiet thinking and reading in his chair, formulating ideas for his next Shabbat email blast, his next podcast, or conversation with the boys, theories and ideas to write about. Although he preferred thinking versus interacting, he committed himself to making the Jewish world a better place through his work at JCC, ADL, Hillel, the Jewish Federation. Alan would do anything for anyone, often at the expense of himself. He helped others with zero selfishness. He didn't have a territorial bone in his body or love for things. Alan was as pure as they come. Alan loved me with all his heart, unconditionally. I had never met anyone like Alan in my whole life. All I needed was to be myself. It never mattered how rotten I was. All the boys needed to be were themselves. He and I had the same theory about raising them. Feed them, clothe them, and then move the hell out of the way. He loved the boys' zest for life, their exuberance to create themselves every day. He was in awe of them and so fiercely proud of what they accomplished, who they know, how they bring people together. But really, this is exactly what Alan did. He never wavered in his confidence for what they are creating together and create together. There was never a doubt in his mind that they will be amazing, successful as an entrepreneurial artists. He was in awe of their drive, uniqueness, hunger to show the world who they are. He lived to hear every story, every event, every idea they shared. He talked or texted with them every day and researched whatever they were doing, who they were meeting, for the sole purpose of having meaningful conversation about their experiences. Alan would want them to continue the path they're on, as if we had anything to say about it. Alan was truly committed to us. Alan and I shared a love of Israel, our home. Alan's spiritual and physical happy place was Israel. As Gary said, it was no coincidence to me that today of all days, 3 hostages were released. Yes, we moved to Palm Springs to be closer to the boys and do meaningful work, of course. But the real reason he loved Palm Springs was that it was a little slice of Israel, the desert, the heat, the mountains, the feel of Israel. As I mentioned to Alan, Palm Springs was the perfect career capstone. Alan was free to do what he does best, build community, strengthen Jewish knowledge, and commitment to Israel from a fresh perspective. He studied, researched, read, taught whatever he could to educate others about Judaism in Israel. He was often sought out globally for his views and perspectives on Israel. Alan's commitment to Judaism, however, was his own. He never imposed any of his rules on others. He had unwavering commitment to build Jewish community in all the places we lived and planted roots, from Purdue University at Hillel, University of Illinois in Champaign, Hillel, Austin, Texas, ADL, Omaha, JCC, ADL, and Jewish Federation, and Israel, to Palm Springs. He touched the soul of Palm Springs, and the soul of Palm Springs touched us. But Alan wasn't done yet here. He had just gotten started. We shared full careers together, always supporting one another. He often commented on my work, how I engaged with others with energy in a way that was so different from him. We respected each other's styles of working, what each contributed, and how we approached our work. Alan was multifaceted. He loved literature, art, photography, papermaking, education, music, technology, motorcycles. Yes, motorcycles. Bicycles. He loved to learn anything he could from others. His most recent passion was motorcycling, but more than likely, this was just another pathway to connect with his most dearest friend, Jim Krantz. He looked forward to his trips with his new biker buddies. He loved it and moved slowly at his own pace. We all know that Alan loved his scotch. He tried to convince me once when we first met, when he pulled out a flask that was supposed to be used for medicinal purposes only. Scotch was a metaphor for Alan in life and allowed him to relax his mind while enjoying the taste. The boys shared something with me right after Alan passed. Mom, we left nothing unsaid with Papa. We shared everything we ever needed to, and so did I. How lucky are we that we lived a life together that was about being present with each other. Not perfect, but we did well. Alan leaves us a blueprint for how to show up in this world. Let's pay attention to that. Let him guide us and live as Alan would have.
Jim Krantz, who is a photographer and longtime friend of Alan, who Amy mentioned, will talk about photos of Alan that are being displayed upstairs. Jim lives in Los Angeles. Jim Krantz, I know you're here.
Hi, Potashes. Yeah, this is unbelievable, but it's full of joy for me at the same time. Yeah, unbelievable, but full of joy. And just a couple things I'll say here. My voice is really with my camera. So I'm going to do my best. And as I sat here and listened to Amy, that was so beautiful. I loved it. That's Alan. Perfect. I loved it. And that's Alan. What I put together a series of snapshots. I relate to photography, so I'm going to speak in photographs. It's the only way I really can. So this is a lot of little snapshots I've been writing out while I've been sitting here. I really didn't have anything planned, but if you can put these all together, maybe it'll make the book at the end. There's a spectrum of light called infrared. It's invisible, but it exists. You can't see it with the human eye. There's a special spectrum of light that Alan and I and Susan existed in. And we knew Alan maybe different than everybody knows a different Alan, but this was a very special and most unique person. I think the most important thing is to reflect on the energy and the creativity this guy had more than anything, because that's who Alan was. It's sad and it's horrible, and the whole thing is a bit overwhelming. And I'll say one thing that people were saying about, I think I agree with Rose Kennedy, that pain doesn't heal with time, really. I think the shock heals, but the pain lingers. At least I think it will for me. There's a helmet behind me. And the reason the helmet's there is for the last many years, Alan and I and all of our friends have been writing. And Alan, always over my right shoulder. He's always been over my right shoulder. Slow and steady. Sometimes just a little tiny headlight way, way, way off in the distance. He was getting there, but Alan was always there, just right there. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? Now the helmet's in here. Now the helmet's in front because he's ahead of me. Alan's ahead of me. And now I'm going to follow his example. His inspiration and tone, something now that I'll follow. So there's Alan. More snapshots, so stick with me. Talking about pain. I'm not sure pain's bad. I think pain's sometimes good. Because like in photography, there's black and there's white. You have to have contrast. One doesn't exist without the other. Sometimes we need this pain to see the beauty. Sir Isaac Newton, he said, for every action, there's equal and opposite reaction. Case in point, Alan was born with a bad heart, but he was born with the best heart. More snapshots. There was a fire last week in LA. It was devastating. We all know that. Susan and I were with a mutual friend of ours that we love, Stuart Rosenberg. He actually watched his home go up in flames on his iPhone, on his Ring app. And he's very strong. He said, the only thing that he's going to miss are the journals that his parents kept when they were in Auschwitz that can't be replaced. But he too will survive because as his parents gave him the strength, he'll continue. Going back to fires, another snapshot. 41 years ago in Omaha, there was a fire in the old market. Susan and I was a single parent at the time. Susan was my girlfriend, now my wife for forever. And there was a guy by the name of Alan Potash we read about in the Omaha World Herald. This guy lost everything. And somehow we seeked him out. I had an extra bedroom in our house. Alan moved in, and this perfect stranger basically became our family. So it was Susan, Alan, Danny, my son, and I. So that spare room housed Alan. So the poignancy of this, we just went through a horrible fire. Out of these ashes, sometimes good things happen. Our roommate became our family member. It was always the four of us. More snapshots. I had a South Omaha studio, and this is where I worked. This is where Alan also started to gain some traction. He moved in and he started his company called Jerusalem Paperworks. And early on, Alan's affinity for Israel was the namesake of his business. I didn't really understand why he called it Jerusalem Paperworks, but now I know. It always meant something to him. Israel always had a place in his heart. Alan was creating a path that was his own. He was getting traction, and his new direction was born. Alan was really a frontiersman. So when people talk about, they didn't know he rode motorcycles. He was a lot of things. He was a lot of things. Our studio became a creative hub. Susan shooting her beautiful portraits. Alan's paper, our friend Matt Plotchek, his sculptures, and our friend Andy Anderson, his films. It was a collective. We all created our own worlds, unique of each other. And what bound us was our passion. Passion was the hub of the wheel. Another statement by Newton, an equal and opposite reaction, another snapshot also. The Omaha fire gifted each of us each other. Alan's bold approach to life continued in every aspect of his being. We rode through the rainforests of Cuba together. His in-depth trips to Israel. Alan, always curious, questioning, analyzing, and most important, listening. Alan was the best listener in the world. Great quality. His family, Amy as the Adiv, obviously, that's what he existed for. Susan and I would get updated. True. We'd get updates on you guys almost every day. It's like, this is what he lived for. You're lucky boys. He loves you. More snapshots. Now in our garage in Los Angeles, Alan's motorcycle is parked behind mine. Trying to sell it for Amy, but I keep thinking about this. It's in the same composition as we always rode. Mine in the front, his in the back, right on my tail. He'd follow my example and learn. Now I'm following his example. I put the bike on eBay. Fortunately, there were no takers. Deep inside, I'm happy it didn't sell yet, because to me, it's like a monument to be preserved, to illustrate something that applies to everyone. It's not about being the fastest in life. It's about being up for the challenge, living life and being in the wind and off balance. It's okay not to be 100% positive about the destination, but like Alan, full throttle and exploring what life offers. Actually, I don't think this bike should be ridden by anyone else. It should be a reminder that life is for living and to always push it to the limit. And that's Alan. Thank you.
Thank you for coming today. Our thoughts are with the people of Israel, and may all the hostages come home soon. Please join us for a reception upstairs. Thank you very much for coming today.